Welcome back to the Naked Podcast. This is Janelle, and today's episode is a little different. There are no guests, it's just me and something I wrote. I haven't always written. It's something I kind of stumbled into a few years ago without really knowing the why behind it. But over time, it became really clear that writing is where I find clarity, healing, and perspective. I've been writing quietly for years now, and for the first time, I'm starting to share it publicly, starting with you. I'm honestly so excited, but equally as scared to let these pieces live outside of my notebook. It feels extremely vulnerable and raw. I want to thank you for being here and for listening. This is a giant leap for me. If something I share speaks to you, I would love to know more about it. Or if maybe you know someone who might need to hear this, just pass it along. Thanks again. I am so delighted to be here with you today and to celebrate 50 episodes. I honestly had no idea what recording would entail. And I had no idea how hard it would be to get past episode 3 and then do episode 5. And then there was a huge break. And it just like the things that have come along the journey of recording and trusting myself have been very, very difficult to get out of my head, really, and to just remember what this is about. So I thought, why not have a podcast where we could cheers. I'm drinking a nice, delicious, warm chai my daughter made for me this morning. And cheers to all you for being along for this journey and for all of us showing up and for me getting to 50 episodes. It felt like, oh my goodness, it was kind of just came out of nowhere. And I was like, oh my gosh, we're at 50 episodes and we did this. Like we were able to continue. And there has been some times, those of you who have followed along, you've noticed probably there's been some big breaks where I have taken some time. And so I just wanted to talk a little bit about what Naked has been for me, what it's been to be here with you, to be more transparent, the changes that have come over the course of the last couple of years of what Naked was when we first started to what it's becoming. And I think, it's crazy. When I started recording this, I recorded my first podcast in 2022. And I had no idea what my name was going to be. I had no idea how to execute the actual putting the work out there. That you even need to have intros or anything. I just knew that I wanted to create a space for untold stories because of a conversation I had with my grandma. And my grandma's when I sat down with her, she loved to just kind of reminisce. And she ended up opening up all of her albums, her photo albums, and being like, and this is when this happened, and this is when I had sheep, and just kind of going through the losses, and this is when I lost a baby, and all these things. And it just was like, wow, Grandma. I sat there being like, gosh, I didn't know this about you. I didn't know all these things that you had gone through. And I said, it would have been crazy because I lost babies. And to have known that she'd gone through that in my younger years, the connections that can bring, that that knowing that you're not alone. And she looked straight me in the eye and she says, you know what, Janelle, if more of us told our stories, fewer of us would feel alone. And I was like, yeah, you're right. You're totally right. Most of us just tuck all that stuff inside ourselves and we don't talk about the things. There's not always space or maybe allowance, or maybe we just don't feel like we can. And from that moment, I was like, I got to create a space for stories to be told. I literally know that that's what I need to get myself into doing, which was really hard because I'm not really a front and camera kind of girl. I'm the youngest of 3, and my sister is always the very confident. She was okay to be in front of people. And I was like, I'll sweep the floors and I'll be the background singer and I'll lead the kids choir, but don't have me lead the choir. I don't want to sing. It just was always felt like I would get so emotional in spaces like that. And even my first recording, I remember when I sat down and did this for the very first time, oh my gosh, I was sweating profusely. And I didn't know where I was going to go or what I was going to say. And I felt all of the emotions that I did years ago when I would go on stage and announce that we were going to have a choir practice, and I'd be crying about the fact that we're having choir practice. Not that I'm sad, it's just that I'm so scared and so nervous to be in front of people. So the podcast has really pushed me to be more comfortable with my voice, to be more comfortable in my own skin, to use the courage that I have deep within me, and to be the calmness, because a lot of people come on the podcast and they're nervous. So I have to be the person on the other end that creates that calm essence that we're both not sitting here nervous together. So it's really, really taught me a lot about myself and a lot about the importance of reminding myself what this is about, coming back to the why this is important. Why Naked is important is because it's about sharing stories. It's so that you and I know that we're not alone, so that we can feel more collectively together, even if we're just listening to someone's story, but maybe your story is parallel to somebody else's and you're like, oh, they did it. I have hope. I can make it. Just knowing that somebody has gone through something and they made it through to the other side, no matter how hard it was. So this getting to 50 episodes feels like a great accomplishment, because my first podcast felt like such a big jump and such a big leap. And I wasn't sure how I was going to interview or have people on the podcast or how we were going to even flow. So the first year of the podcast, I only put out 5, and they were people that I really knew and were close to. My grandma was one of them. She shared the story about how she was a young mom and my dad had a horrible accident, and she was living on the farm trying to take care of him, teaching him how to walk and talk and feed himself again as a 7-year-old boy, while also taking care of littles, and just that journey. And then my dad came on and he told his story about when he fell out the truck and all that went on. So it was really sweet to have people that were really close to me allow themselves to be vulnerable in this space with me. We could grow together. I'm really, really grateful for the people that joined me in that first season. Some of my good friends. It gave me the confidence. I think it gave me the assurance that I could get through a podcast because I had their eyes on the other end of the camera. But it's been such a growing experience for me and such a learning how to show up and how to be naked and how to create space for people to also expose parts of their hearts that maybe they haven't talked about in a long, long, long time, or maybe ever. But I would say that there is definitely, like any creator that I've talked to, that whether you're painting or you're writing or you're singing or whatever it is, there is this feeling sometimes where you're like, who am I? Like, who am I to be able to do this? Like, I'm just a small girl from a small town, and I think it's this weave into being creative. Creativity requires you to put yourself out there, and there you can feel like imposter syndrome. You can feel like just pure fear about what do you have to offer. And I really was hoping that in sharing this conversation with you about getting to 50 episodes and doing the hard thing, that maybe will inspire you to do the thing that's sitting in your heart. Or maybe you've started and stopped something and you're just like, I don't know if I have it. I just want to say, like, you have it. You have what you need to do the thing that's calling you. And the critics are going to be in your head. They're going to dance around and they're going to tell you all the things that you're not. And it's our responsibility to move past that and to not get stuck seeing yourself as small and incapable. I have a podcast that's coming out. I was just editing it. It's coming out in a couple of weeks, and it's by a friend named Alan. And he said, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And I think that is really, really true when it comes to doing something like creating, creating anything or in any way of life. But for me specifically, I feel like it's when I change the way I look at this, like the importance of this, I can change the way things, like it just, things look differently. I don't have as much fear, and I'm like, oh yeah, like I have what it takes. And I tell myself, like, you can do this, even though sometimes I've been in conversation with people and I've completely lost my train of thought mid-sentence, like I'm just like blank. Not getting stuck on the little hiccups, not getting stuck on the things that maybe didn't go right, the podcasts that just like somehow just deleted, and feeling like, disappointed in myself. They're going to have those, and we're going to be in a space where we're going to feel like, oh, shoot, like I could have done that so much better. And sometimes those can be the things that hold us back from moving forward, from doing the thing that's calling us. So I really, really appreciated that reflection, just like thinking back on what he said, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And that really is so, so true. I found to be really, really real in this journey of podcasting. And I think it's also important to have people in your corner that are supporting you. I have felt such a deep amount of support from my friends, from my parents, from my kids. And so I think sharing the things that that you're doing, that you want to do, find people that can support you in your corner to remind you that you're got what it takes to do it and that it matters. I think like starting this podcast was one thing, but then going into this new season. So season 2 has required a huge leap for me. It almost feels as big as the first time I sat in front of my camera and recorded the first episode. I was sitting in a coffee shop with my son, Mikkel, last summer, and actually last winter, I think it was. And we were just kind of coming to the end of this huge break we took in Naked. And I'd gone back to take care of my dad, and I'd gone back to Canada and spent a lot of time with him and helping him because he had a really bad injury. And so naturally, life has those things. And so you take the pauses. And we did that. And then it was like, should I start it up again? Like, should I do it? And he sat there and he's like, Mom, like what is stirring inside of you? Like, what is calling you? And I'm like, you know what? I really love the podcast, but I also feel like I'm equally being pulled into this space of like writing more, writing my story and writing what I see and writing what I feel. And writing for me came to me very organically. I never grew up being great in school. I really struggled with specifically English. And just remember my teacher saying to me, like, you're not a writer, like you'll never be a writer. And that word just like really sticking to my 15-year-old self, being like, oh yeah, like clearly I'm great at writing grocery lists. And that's about that's the extension of my writing. But this feeling wouldn't leave me. And I've been kind of writing on and off for like the last decade or so, but never shared any of my work publicly. And I said to him, I feel like it's time for me to start sharing like my work, like what I write about. And that feels very scary because that's another layer of nakedness that I have not exposed to the world. And I think one other thing that's difficult is fearing what people think about you is one thing, but fearing what like the people that know you, like your parents or say your closest friends or your siblings or even your children, think of you being like they see you kind of, I think I can get caught in my head where it's like they see me as like 12-year-old Janelle. And so there's this idea that in my own head that people will be disappointed with my authenticity, will be disappointed with how raw I am, maybe the choice of words that I use, or maybe just honestly being so exposed. And I've never been that naked before. And we sat there in the coffee shop crying. I was crying. I was like, okay, I think because this is such a sensitive feeling with me, it feels like that's what I need to do next. And so that's when we started to kind of map out season 2 and what would season 2 look like and how can we lay it out and what would it require of me. And that's when I started to record. My first piece I put out was Choosing. And that was a really hard piece to put out because it was very close to my heart. And something that I've done a lot in my life is really hope for people, like to my own detriment, like put myself out there wanting something more for somebody. And I guess it's a sense of, I really realized it's like a sense of control. Like I just wanted things to be better for them. And so it's a sense of control. Like, how can I do this? How can I help them? But I realized in that piece of writing that if you want for somebody more than they want for themselves, you're just going to be constantly frustrated, and it's going to put tension on the relationship when nobody asked you to want more for them. Like, like they didn't ask me to stress about them or to put myself out because for what they needed. It was like my own doing. And so I realized in that piece that there is something really powerful and healing about digging deep within my heart and letting the words that are just sitting inside me come out, have a place to just be out in the air, and how that can be so healing. I remember calling my mom and feeling kind of like excited to share with her, but also like nervous because part of that piece was in reference to how I've even looked at my parents, like just wanting to help them and wanting to do things and just realizing like, no, like they are living their own life and they get to make their own choices just like I do. And so it was really releasing. And I found from that point on that I had this freedom, and I share each piece that I read and write on the podcast. I share it with my parents before I put it out, just because to me, like I want them to be on this journey with me. And that was something I didn't didn't have. And so it's even deepened the relationships that I have in my life by being vulnerable with the people that sometimes are a part of the pieces that I'm speaking about or writing about. So that's been really, really beautiful thing that's come from the podcast second season, is that it's required a deeper amount of vulnerability from me, but it's also deepened the relationships in my life. I remember about a couple weeks after I started the second season, my sister called me, and I wasn't expecting like anything other than like, let's talk about whatever life. And she's like, I just want to tell you that I'm so proud of you. And I could have broke down crying. I was like, really? She's like, I'm so proud of you for writing and for putting it out there and for trusting yourself and for doing the thing. And you're never too old for someone to see you, is what I'm realizing, is that it doesn't matter what age you are. When someone sees you and has just the openness to tell you, gosh, it's one of the most beautiful things to receive. And so I started writing down, actually, when someone compliments something, or not even compliments, but just like sees something in a piece, or that or someone's stories on the podcast and like, wow, that really meant something to me. I write it down. I write down the times people say something positive, or say something encouraging, or say something at all about the podcast, because I think, or about the people that are sharing, because I think it's important to remember and to reflect on the times when someone's encouraged us. Because I think that oftentimes the words in my head, or the negativity of what it's not, or what I'm not, can be so loud. So it's so important to remind myself of the positive comfort and encouragement that comes. And it's so incredible. And I even had a podcast with I guess last week, it's coming out soon, and Dr. Sarah, and she was talking about how someone just came to her and said she was doing a smashing job of being a parent. She's like, how much that meant to her. She's like, I just needed to hear that. So I don't think sometimes we overlook the brilliance and kindness of encouragement. Just seeing somebody and how wonderful that is to be on the receiving end, but also how wonderful it is to see somebody and just be like, gosh, like, this is incredible. Like, what you're doing is amazing. So yeah, that's been really good for me to kind of like reflect on, but also just to notice, yeah, how amazing it is when somebody sees you. So if you're in your life today and you're out and about, you're in your car today listening to this podcast, or in your house cleaning, or whatever it is you're doing, when you go to your car, when you see somebody, just take a minute to see them. Like, it's powerful. Or write someone a message, or whatever. Like, just connecting people around us is so, so, so important. And it makes such a big deal and can really help people like continue to move forward in their life, whatever it is that they're doing. So yeah, that's been a huge thing that I've learned this season. Especially, I've been really transparent and sharing pieces that are really dear to my heart. Is just, yeah, doing the work and trusting that it's important, even when sometimes I'm questioning myself and sitting here swirling around a huge amount of thoughts, wondering if I've done enough, or if I should even be here, doing this work. But I think one thing I heard recently somebody say on the podcast, again, I'm just referencing so many people that were on the podcast. If you haven't listened to the most recent one that came out, which was last week, was Elise Powers, and she's an incredible poet. And one of the things she said about putting her work out there was, it's not about like writing the best, how did she say it? It's not about writing the perfect poem. It's about writing the truest poem. And I think that's what I'm here about. And that's what I always lean towards. It's not about the perfect podcast or the perfect story, because or whatever, but it's about the truest, like coming here with the most truest, authentic self, the most unedited footage that you can hear, so that it's real. Like, we just need more real in our life, and letting the people just come here and allow themselves to be the most authentic and most rawest person that they can be, that they want to be. So that's definitely what this has pushed me to do, is to just come real, authentically, and honestly, continually, over and over and over again. And I'm just so honored when people say yes. Sometimes it takes me a huge amount of courage. Like, at the beginning, I feel like at the beginning of this, when I started recording, it was like kind of like when you start a new business, you're selling candles or you're selling Tupperware or whatever, and you ask your friends to host the parties because they're the only ones you know. And then eventually it ends up, having a rippling effect. And sometimes that's happened with the podcast where it's like, okay, I've asked people that I'm close to, and then they'll refer a friend. But sometimes it's just like cold turkey. Like I remember I was in a lineup going on a plane by myself, and I heard this girl talking, and she was just like talking about, she was leaving a voice message for somebody, and she was so positive. She's like really informing her team and just like encouraging them. And after I was like, gosh, like that's amazing that you just like that message. The people that are receiving that message just must just brighten their day. And immediately we clicked and we started talking. And I was just like, oh my goodness, like this woman just has me so intrigued. And quickly the line moved and we were in our seats, and I was at the back of the plane and she was at the front of the plane. And I ended up writing on I had like a little small piece of paper, ripped up paper in my bag. And I wrote like, hey, it was so nice to meet you. Let's connect via, let's connect via Instagram. I'd love to have you on my podcast. And I asked the flight attendant if she could go bring it to like her seat. And that's how we connected. And sometimes it's that random. It's that like I see someone in the street, I'm like, wow, you're inspiring. Or I hear a musician playing, I'm like, man, I want to know more about your music. And I just have found myself leaning into curiosity. Like, I think that's what this podcast has done, is just everywhere you go, you're like, everybody has a story. Like every single person has a story. And so I'm just leaning into my curiosity and really want to know like who people are and like what made them in this come to the season, what made them, like makes them who they are, what makes them tick, what brings them joy, what is the time when everything changed. And the chances are everybody we know in our life has had a time when everything's changed. And so it's been such a really cool opportunity to meet people and to step out of my comfort zone and do something silly like sending a note on a plane to see if someone wants to connect. It's really, really, really pushed me. And I think that doing things that like creating is going to push you to do things that you would never do. It's going to push you to try new things, to to maybe embarrass yourself sometimes, and maybe someone will say no, but at least you tried, And so yeah, I'm excited that we're here. I'm excited for this new season. I'm excited what it's requiring of me. I'm also scared. I'm like skited, I guess, where I'm like, I'm sometimes I get to the close to the week where I'm putting a naked note out. I'm like, I don't have anything, or it's not done. And even in that, it like pushes me to the final hour being like, you have it in you, Janelle, like go do the thing that's in you, like trust that it's there and do it. So this has been like a huge learning curve for me. And I assume that it's going to be many more learning curves around the corner as we continue down this journey, and writing and, with Greg and I in this new season, him and I sharing our perspectives was a huge leap for us. We've talked a lot about sharing, parts of our life and not always knowing how to do that. And it feels like the Naked Podcast has just kind of broadened what it was originally. It's just kind of broadened its reach as far as like me sharing the writings and Greg and I talking and sharing our perspectives and writing together, about what seasons of our life together have look like and how it's changed us and our marriage. So yeah, it's just all, every time I show up here, it's all new. It's all just experimenting. It's all just putting myself out there and trusting that, that I'm doing the right thing and that I have what it takes to do it. And I just want to say to you that if there's something that's calling you and you're putting on the shelf and you look at it and then you run from it, you look at it, you run from it, like look at it long enough until you can do it. Just know that you have what it takes to do it, and that your voice matters, and that nobody else can do it the way you do it. And nobody else, has your abilities the way that you do, or your insight or your perspective. So trust yourself, know that you have what it takes, and do the thing that's calling you, because the world needs it. We need it. We all need to hear it, and trust that you have what it takes. So yeah, this is a short one, but just a bit of a celebration as to like what it is to be naked and what it is to be honest and what it is to show up even when you're so scared and you're sweating and you have enough fears in your mind to keep you running, but you stop and you look and you do the thing, and you trust. So yeah, so cheers to 50 episodes. We did it. we're going to do 50 more and then we'll have another celebration. But yeah, I am so, so thankful that you're here, and I value your time, and I appreciate every word that comes in every time someone says anything that resonated with them or that inspired them. Like, it matters. I just want you to know that what you say, it matters, and it just, it impacts people. So wherever you are in your life, like, notice someone today and tell them how amazing they are. Tell them what you love about them. Tell them how they inspire you. Because your voice does matter and it makes a difference in someone's life. So much love from me to you. Ciao. Thank you so much for joining me in this little celebration of 50 episodes. It feels like quite a milestone. I wasn't sure we were going to get here, but we did it. And if you were someone who was a guest on the podcast, thank you so, so much for joining me, for saying yes to sharing your story. I know how hard it can be, but this space exists because of so many people saying yes to sharing their story. So thank you so much. As I looked back on the many guests who've had the courage to share their stories with me here, I thought about pulling together snippets of words that inspired me, but there was honestly so many that it would have made this podcast really, really long. So instead, I wanted to leave you with just one. It comes from my dear friend Laura, who was my 5th guest on the Naked podcast. My courageous friend who had enough trust in me to sit with me when I barely knew anything about podcasting. We had such an incredible conversation, but the words she spoke that I will never forget is when she said, "I know that I am not responsible for my pain, but I am responsible for my own healing." Her words struck me then, and they've stayed with me ever since. I think about it often, remembering that I am the one responsible for my own healing. If I have learned one thing in this journey, it is that if something has penetrated my heart, it has touched me, it has changed the way I view myself and my life, and it keeps coming up, there is a high possibility that someone else needs to hear it too. And if these words resonate with you, I hope you carry them with you into your day, and that you remember that you have what it takes to heal. Find the supports, seek the counseling, lean into the things that help you heal. I hope that you find so much light in the shadows, that you see and feel the joy in the small things, and that you find your healing in your own time. I am sending so much love from me to you. Thank you for being here. Until next time.